Yo, what is up, guys? My name is Justice 2.0, and this is the first episode of Bet the Script. And on this show, unlike other shows out there, we look for what is the actual storyline under the fight to sort of get our betting off. So, yes, I do look at data. Yes, I do want to see history and things of that nature. Someone missed weight, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, those things are worth taking into account. But we all know there's a script, and if you know about fighting in particular, they say that styles make fights. And if that's true, it's my opinion as a marketer, as a person who understands how to read data and analytics. If you understand what fight is about to take place in MMA, you can probably predict about 75 to 80% of all fight outcomes just based off that, outside of any other random variables that may present themselves. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Let's figure out what is the script for this week's fights and where does it make sense to place our bet. So, for this first show, I'm just only going to do the top three fights of the main card, and we'll go from there. And so, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right, so make this a little bit bigger. Let's see. All right, cool. So hopefully everybody can see. I'm on UFC.com right here, and we're going to start with the first three cards of the main card. Now, this card in particular isn't a very stacked card by any means. We just came off the John Jones fight. Hopefully, you guys made some money betting on the GOAT, but especially at minus, I think I got him at minus 125, which is insane. Um, so yeah, so this card here, if you start to follow my content, I don't really like betting on the prelims at all. Here's the thing. Let's jump and do this. You know what? Let's start off. Yeah, let's start off with Petr Yan. Let's see. Petr Yan versus Merab. This is the fight that we're all trying to see. I ain't trying to see all these other no-name fighters. It's like watching college football. It's like, bro, I barely like the NFL. I don't want to see these random, like, unless you care about the schools. Just so yeah, we're jumping into it. Petr Yan, Merab Divasvili. Interesting. They look very similar on paper, straight up. Now, what is the script for this fight? Here's the thing. We can go over the X's and O's, and we already know Yan's a striker. Yan's what I like to call a very technical striker who can wrestle. And then Merab's basically a high-level wrestler who likes to basically take his time with his striking to set up his wrestling, right? So I call him like a patient striker looking to wrestle. This style matchup usually ends up with the wrestler dominating the match, period. Go back in history and look at most of the wrestler striker matches. I would say about 70 to 75% of the time, the wrestler ends up winning. Just because with wrestling, you can kind of control where the fight happens. It's a good base for MMA overall. And that leverage allows you to kind of dominate or dictate where the fight takes place. And it essentially allows you to control what fight's about to happen and then implement your game plan very successfully. So someone like, so that gives Merab a very, very big advantage. So the first thing to consider is what fight's about to take place. We're probably about to see a wrestling match. We're probably about to see a grappling match. And if we're about to see that, it does make sense that you have to tip your cap to Merab and give him a check on that. Merab also is rewarded with having he has the most takedowns in a round, like 18. So he's very relentless with his takedowns. Pretty decent gas tank, not the greatest. I haven't really seen him in a 5-round fight before, but that aggressive takedowns and wrestling against someone like Yan is going to be interesting. We saw Yan struggle with Aljamain in the second fight, and he couldn't get away from him at all. His wrestling defense is very low, and because of that, it's going to be challenging for Jan. Another knock against Jan is that it's a 3-round fight. So Jan typically takes a while to get going. So I don't really see him winning this first round. And if he doesn't win the first round because he's still trying to figure it out, it's going to be a long night for him. Because if you give that first round to Merab, then Merab still dominates the second round with some wrestling. Even if Jan comes back in the third round and outstrikes him, now we're going to do the decision, and Jan hasn't won a lot of decisions. So just on paper, if you didn't know who these guys are, you would give the nod to Merab, and Merab is easily the smarter bet at this point in time. Now, another thing I'd say too is the odds are what they are. The odds usually don't really reflect what people like experts think. They reflect what the public thinks, and it's usually more of a popularity contest. However, Jan a favorite here. Here's why I do agree with it, and I would say the script is written out for Jan actually, and because of that, well, let me just make my point on the script. Here's the thing. Jan is a former champion, right? And also he has lost his last 2 fights. Usually in the UFC, historically speaking, if you've lost your last 2 fights, that usually means you could easily be on the list to get kicked out of the UFC. So the UFC, it won't look good for him to lose 3 fights in a row. So I don't think the UFC gives him this fight without, that understanding. So I do think that he's the favorite. He's a more popular guy, again, former champion, and he's more exciting to watch. So the script says Jan should win. The UFC wants Jan to win. Don't get it twisted on this. They want the man to win. And so if this fight does go to decision and it looks remotely close, you best believe that they're going to pick Jan. They're also in a new random arena this week. And I don't know why, but whenever they're out of arenas that are not traditional, like in Vegas, the T-Mobile Arena, weird stuff just happens. New York, we just saw another bad beat in Perth. Like Houston typically has bad decisions. So all these places that aren't typical like UFC, MMA sort of spots, they typically have bad judging. Even though this is in Vegas, because it's in a new spot, I just feel like the judging can't be trusted. Therefore, you got to go with who the UFC would want, and I would say that is going to be Jan. And so because of what I just described, this is a fight that I wouldn't necessarily bet myself. But on merit and just stylistic matchups, this seems like it's going to be a grappling match due to Merab's relentless pace for wanting to get takedowns. Now, if Jan could defend him and outstrike him, he can potentially win the match. But another thing that I don't think people are giving credit for is Jan doesn't fight very well off his back foot. He doesn't fight very well not being the aggressor. And so because of that, I don't see how, if he's going to be defending most of the time, he's probably going to get taken down at least once or twice. It's a 3-round fight. He doesn't usually win the first round. This is probably going to a decision. Just everything about this just screams, oh, Merab, of course. But because of the hype and the popularity of Jan, it seems like you should go with him. And that's where I would say, if you're a Jan fan, this is not the fight to be betting on, that he's going to get the win on this one. The other ones, he had a legitimate chance. He probably, I don't know if he lost it, but like that was a good fight to bet on him because we didn't know that was going to happen. And then the O'Malley fight, of course, like most people thought he won the fight. So, but this one, Stylistically, this is not the greatest matchup for him, and so I don't really see how he gets to win technically. Only way I see him winning this is just by decision. The judges give him a split decision, and we're all kind of confused on Monday, like what happened. But the script says the UFC wants him to win this fight. I don't think it's random that this fight is taking place in some place we've all never heard of. And I expect the judging to be random. And so because of that, the script says Jan, but the data says Merab, and that's why I personally wouldn't bet this fight. Now moving on, let's look at Volkov Romanov. The Battle of the Alexanders. Now, this guy spelled it a little differently. It's kind of funny. Now, this again, we just talked about this fight. This is classic wrestler versus striker. Now, who's going to win? So this is interesting. Volkov, I mean, in fight years, I feel like Volkov is as old as dirt. I know when this first opened, this was not the original odds. I know Volkov was actually the favorite. He's a little bit more popular than Romanov. Given Romanov's wrestling pedigree, he easily becomes the favorite here. I don't know what it is about heavyweights, but heavyweights usually just don't have good wrestling. Like heavyweight division is probably the most like incomplete division in the UFC. You just have guys who are just kind of one-trick ponies, guys who are very one-dimensional. And so stylistically, it's very easy to kind of pick heavyweight matches because number one, wrestler striker, the guys one guy's a wrestler, one guy's a striker, the wrestler is usually going to win that match. And that's kind of what we have here. Volkov's no slouch. Volkov's faced very top level talent for a long time, very long, very lanky, and very big, very tall. However, I just saw Volkov lose to Aspinall, and he lost bad. Like Aspinall made it look easy. He sliced through that dude like butter. And we also saw Volkov beat Rosenstruck. But the way he beat Rosenstruck wasn't like he dominated the kid. He was just he basically like jabbed him. He hit him with a jab in the right spot. Rosenstruck sat down and he got himself out of there. But he was just very methodical, very just, accuracy, technique-based knockout. It wasn't like it was a power knockout. For most heavyweights, they probably don't go down in that situation. So I don't see my point is Volkov is not a knockout artist. Even that knockout would be considered a technical knockout and not a actual knockout. So kind of looking at some of the odds here, and you look at what's probably likely to happen. This is probably going to be a wrestling match likely won by Romanov. I see this heavy against the cage, heavy on the floor. Volkov is stiff as shit, so I don't really expect him to be doing a lot. Romanov, I haven't really seen him really like knock out anybody. I think Volkov is smart enough and good enough not to put himself in any like compromising position. So I don't really see Romanov getting like a submission or ground and pound situation. I see him constantly trying to advance for better positions without much luck. However, controlling the fight and controlling Volkov's volume, ultimately winning him rounds. I do see this fight going to decision. However, I would say the script on this one is indifferent. I don't think the UFC really cares about who wins this fight. I would say they probably want Romanov to win just because Romanov probably has a more favorable contract than Volkov does. And so at this point, I think Volkov is just seen as a gatekeeper. And so as gatekeepers, usually like, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, we need you to test out whether we want to push this guy or get rid of this guy or like make a decision on Romanov versus figure out what we want to do with you. So yeah, this is basically middle of the road sort of matchup. After this, no guys getting a super big match. These guys have no hype. It's just basically, a card filler match. But wrestler, striker, on paper, Romanov should win this fight. Well, the problem with Romanov is that he not in the best shape, a little sloppy, and so I typically don't like betting on guys who gas a lot or who are just kind of sloppy because it adds too much randomness to the match, right? You kind of want to bet on guys who are going to be crisp, clean, technical, consistent, reliable. And some of those elements of gassing and being sloppy kill reliability. But given how stiff Volkov looked, given how he wasn't able to do anything with the wrestling at all, it's hard to see Romanov not getting some takedowns. And if he gets them and he can control them a little bit, it's tough to see Volkov coming out of this. The only way I really see Volkov winning the fight is he wins a point fight by outstriking Romanov. I don't really see him knocking him out. I know it's heavyweight and it could happen, but I just don't see that happening. Wrestlers tend to be very tough-chinned people. Something about that background. But yeah, unless Volkov can constantly stop every takedown and just piece him up, it's a short fight. It's going to be a grueling sort of style. Volkov probably hates this type of match. He knows what's coming. And I just see Romanov grind him out. I just do. So the script on this one, Romanov probably wins the decision. Not a very super exciting fight to watch. And the last one I'll do here is Krylov Span. Now, this was supposed to be a main event on a card a while ago. I had to get rescheduled. I think something happened with Krylov's camp. Maybe he got sick or something. I forgot what it was exactly. But here we are again, light heavyweight bout. Interesting match. Krylov being the guy who's a little bit more technical, probably more likely to win because of that. And honestly, I would sort of lean to him as well for that reason. Now, here's the thing. Ryan Spann looked like a world beater his last time out. Nobody expected that from Ryan Spann, ever. He's usually been a sloppy guy. He's usually been a guy who underperforms. He's one of those guys who has a lot of potential, but just doesn't try very hard to be amazing. And so he surprised a lot of people his last time out. The problem with that is you're a wild card. We have no idea what to expect from this guy. And so by the script, he's one of those characters is you're just a loose cannon, bro. We have no idea what to expect from you. And that's the type of guy that I don't like betting on. I need you to play your role, bro. Play your role, And we have no idea what Ryan Spann's going to do. Because of that, but I do know what Krylov's going to try to do. Krylov is very consistent. Let's see. Very consistent with his game plan. Strikes, grappling, technical, consistent. And that's why you see people favoring this guy where I know what to expect, where this guy is was it a fluke? Are you really that guy? Now, if Ryan Spann comes out here and beats this dude, I give it to Ryan Spann, but I just don't know. I've seen a lot of his fights against really top-level talent, and he never looked good. And so maybe he's turned over a new leaf. But this is one of those fights that I probably would avoid. This is a fight. This is going to be a good test match to kind of just see, okay, where's Ryan Spann really at? Is he really that dude now? Or is he going back to the old Ryan Spann? Now, if he goes back to the old Ryan Spann, we could probably never bet on him ever again just because we just don't know. He's such a wild card. So the script on this one, to be honest, the UFC wants Ryan Spann to win. Why? How do I know this? Dana White has come out publicly and he said, when I put on a UFC match or we put on these cards in events, I'm looking for 4 oh my God moments. I want to deliver 4 oh my God moments. And to deliver those moments, you need guys who are going to be exciting. You need guys who are going to go for knockouts, guys who are going to do fun, crazy stuff, guys who are going to do stuff that, it's going to get attention on social media, will get memed, get tweeted. Those are the reasons why the UFC pushes certain people over other people. So that being said, Ryan Spann is the person they want winning this match. Krylov, no one, the casual fan does not know who he is. Not a very fun guy. You don't want to see him on unbedded. You don't care. Span, he's interesting. He's got some, he's got a little bit of riz to him. And so if this does go to decision, which I don't think it is, I think there will be a finish here. Not sure by who. The organization is going to favor Span. So if you're betting the script, Span wins on this one. And the dog. So that should be interesting. Just to kind of wrap this up a little bit. Other one here, there's really no script for Volkov, Romanov. I think Volkov's more of a gatekeeper right now. But just off analytics and history, Romanov probably does get the nod just based on the style matchup. And Jan Divishvili, it's very clear that Jan is the person on script who should win this match. We'll see if they go off script here, but Jan's a former champion. Jan barely lost his last match due to judging decisions. And honestly, and then 3, it won't look good if Jan has a 3-fight losing streak. And 4, you don't really want Jan to leave the UFC. The UFC doesn't really want that. Rather, there's something about once you're a former champion, I can kind of tell. You look at history, the UFC tries to protect the former champions. It's kind of interesting. It's because think about it, in MMA, what better branding is there besides former UFC champion? Francis Ngannou is using that right now, former UFC champion. Anybody who goes to Bellator, anybody who goes to BKFC, even for Conor McGregor went to boxing. The biggest marketing ploy that they use is, this guy was a UFC champion. That's the biggest mark of credibility that you can have in the sport right now. So for a guy as young as Petr Yan to leave because, at this stage in his career, because he just didn't like it, or it's unfair, or to be devalued in such a way, it just doesn't make sense. It's not on the script. You don't let a guy of his caliber, cachet, and popularity just go on this skid. It doesn't make any sense. So for that reason, look to see somehow, some way, it shouldn't really happen, Jan win the fight. Now, if you're a betting man, you can bet the script, but the analytics say that Merab should win this fight pretty handily. But it's a close fight, man. This is one I would stay away from. I wouldn't really bet this one. The only one I'm looking at is really Romanov, but the script says Petr Yan, Romanov, and Span. This has been Bet the Script. If you guys like the segment, shoot a like, shoot a comment, shoot a subscribe. Support your boy. I have a couple more of these coming later. But yeah, the one piece of advice I give, and I tell everybody this, MMA to me is one of the easier fights, sports to bet on, judging aside, if you understand what kind of fight's about to take place. And if it does go to decision, you already know whoever's got the juice, whoever the script says is going to win is going to take it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. See you guys soon.